Hey photo world, welcome back to another episode here on takeandtalkpics.com. This is another episode from the former podcast. Please subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join the email list. Let's get to that 1,000 subscriber marker so that way I can add a new video every single week. Enjoy. Hey photo world, Take and Talk Pics, episode 20 with Lee Morris.
I mean, the podcast world is so crazy. I listen to podcasts every single day. I'm going to start listening to yours now.
Today's featured guest is Lee Morris. Lee is a commercial wedding photographer from Charleston, South Carolina. Lee's wedding photography wasn't his first pick, but he slowly fell in love with weddings after being asked by friends to capture their day, and the word of mouth just spread rapidly. Alongside photographer Patrick Hall, Lee is the co-founder of fstoppers.com. It's an online community aimed at educating and inspiring photographers, videographers, and creative professionals. Lee, welcome to Take and Talk Pics.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I've shared just a little bit about you and what you're doing with your photography and your business. Can you tell Photo World a little bit more?
I think, like you said, I started out as a wedding photographer. That wasn't my goal. I don't really know what my goal was. I think my base goal was just make money with photography. At all costs, do not get a real job. That was really what I wanted. And then the wedding photography just kind of happened. People started paying more and more and more. More friends started asking. I started advertising. And then all of a sudden, it's like, okay, this is actually what I am now. I am a full-time wedding photographer. But then in the last 4 or 5 years, Patrick and I have started fstoppers.com, and that has become our full-time jobs now. So we have kind of shifted from photography. We still take pictures. I still shoot some weddings, but we're doing a lot more video now, and we make most of our money selling tutorials on different genres of photography. So the one that actually I'm working on right now as we do this interview, we're doing one with Elia Licardi on landscape photography. And we filmed 40 lessons in 6 different countries. And we have to have this all edited in the next month or 2. So that's why I'm here on a Sunday editing.
Very cool. Well, you got your work cut out for you. And for anybody who hasn't seen fstoppers.com, take a look there. You can see that they've been doing their due diligence through and through with everything. Here in Take a Talk Pics, we're all about sharing your photography story, and I'm fine with it being more about the F-Stoppers side of things where you've ventured into, because that is the growth and development of your personal photography journey. So to get us started off, do you have a quote or a mantra that you tend to live by to kind of keep you inspired on a daily basis?
I can't say that I could sum anything up in a single quote, but I would say that I try to live my life full of variety, full of change, full of excitement and things that I want to do that make me happy. And so obviously that means at times I don't get to make as much money as I could. If I worked, 70 hours a week, like a lot of my friends do, I'm sure I could be much more financially successful. But I feel like I've been able to do some really fun things that are at least fun to me. Some people might say they're really nerdy or whatever, but the video projects that I've been able to do, the fact that we've been able to design this product called the flash disc. None of these things on their own have been these life-changing events, but they're so different. Who would have ever thought that a wedding photographer would be able to sell a tutorial online, or then create a website and then sell advertising, or create a product and get a patent on it. And I'm currently writing a book, and one day I hope to write and direct a movie. And so for me, it's for a lot of my friends who are photographers, it's all about the one thing they do. All I want to do is take better wedding pictures. It's my life. It's my dream to just get better at this one craft. And I'm not really like that. I'm kind of I'd rather be kind of mediocre at a lot of things, but have fun with it because it's kind of new and fresh. And then once I do it, I kind of move on to the next thing.
Clearly it's working for you, and I feel you a little bit. I definitely don't think I've been as ambitious as you, but just venturing into the teaching and delivering information to people, that's kind of where I've developed into after getting my degrees and teaching at the community college where I started. So I really enjoy the teaching aspect, which really sparked Take and Talk Pics to begin with, just bringing information to photographers and letting them know what's out there, because there's so much.
I mean, the podcast world is so crazy. I listen to podcasts every single day. I'm going to start listening to yours now. And it's just crazy how much money there is in podcasts, and how I listen to the Joe Rogan podcast, and it's just so interesting to listen to him just say if I were to, have 30 days to live or whatever, I would be living the exact same life I am right now. I would continue doing the podcast because it's so stress free. I just get to talk to these people that I would want to have a conversation with anyway, and I can make a living doing it. And so it's just amazing what the internet has enabled all of us to be able to do, even with photography. I don't think wedding photography 15 years ago was nothing like it is now.
Right.
It's all about online presence now.
And to that end, would you be able to share with Photo World what kind of sparked your interest in photography enough to start that career path?
Yeah, I thought I was going to be a graphic designer. And while I was still in college, I had to get an internship one summer, and I got an internship working for an advertising agency and a photographer at the same time. I like 3 days with the agency and 2 days with the photographer. I had just a little interest in photography. I was taking a few classes casually, but I always thought I just loved advertising, and I thought it'd be really fun to be able to take the pictures that I would then put into the magazines or whatever that I was going to design. And basically, I just hated the advertising agency. I hated waking up early. I hated coming into an office and I thought I was going to do all these I thought I was going to be designing the next Nike ad, and I was just proofreading copy all day. It was the worst job I've ever had. And then the photographer working for him was so eye-opening because he was this young guy and he owned his own studio and he was having so much fun and he was making all this money. And I was just thinking to myself, why would anyone choose to work in an office when you could choose to work for yourself? And maybe I was a little naive at that point, but I just made the decision right there that I don't care what genre I get into, I cannot go back to working for an advertising agency because I had such a bad experience. And I'm just going to make this work. So I went back to school. I started spending all my money. I had part-time jobs while I was in college. I just spent all my money buying used equipment off eBay, buying and selling. So I was making a little extra profit. If I could get a deal on something, I'd buy it and resell it. And then by the time I got out of school, I had a pretty good amount of gear, way more than the average college grad. I moved to Charleston, South Carolina without ever being here. I'd never even visited. I just kind of moved here with an old friend. I started going to magazines and saying, hey, here's what I can do. My portfolio was an absolute joke, but they still hired me. I was making money with that. I worked for a camera store for a little while. I assisted photographers in town for a little while. And then the weddings just kind of slowly happened. And, like most wedding photographers, you start to realize man, I can make $200 shooting for the magazine, or I can make $2,000 shooting for a wedding. I'm gonna do more of these weddings,
Right.
And then over time, I just kind of stopped assisting. I stopped working for the camera store. I stopped shooting for the magazines, and that was all weddings from there.
And when we're going through all these things, you definitely didn't just turn up overnight as some huge success. It's been a marathon.
No.
It's not a sprint or anything. You paid your dues.
I definitely paid my dues, and I also wouldn't say that I've ever been that much of a successful photographer.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody listening to this purchased our tutorial, we did a 14-hour tutorial on all things wedding photography.
Mm-hmm.
And we tried to be very honest about that because I believe in this photography teaching internet world, there's a lot of egos and there's a lot of well, if I can convince you that I'm really rich and I'm really successful, then maybe you'll hire me for the next job or whatever. So I feel like there's a lot of, I don't know, maybe lies is the right word, going around about the levels of success of people. And we try to be very honest in our tutorial that we are not wildly successful. I know wedding photographers that are making over $1 million a year.
Yeah.
I've never come close to that. And I never will with weddings. But I always tell people that I've been relatively successful with photography. I definitely made more money than the average American makes at a day job, and then now I've just kind of moved into something within the industry, but a little bit different. But I do want to be clear that no, it was not easy at first. My first year out of college, I probably made $15,000 or something, and I was living in a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 guys. One of the guys was living on the sofa. So no, I paid my dues. It took me a while to build things up. And so don't get your hopes up that you can just quit your job tomorrow and everything will be okay.
Exactly. Lee, can you share with Photo World a time where you had to learn the hard way? Maybe a failure moment that just kind of, hopefully you learned a lot from it.
Yeah, this is something that I've shared before. I don't remember. I might have mentioned it in the tutorial as well. I was sitting down with Pi Jerza. He's a very successful wedding photographer out of California. He owns SLRlounge.com. So if you want to look at somebody that's killing it in the wedding world, take a look at him. But this was relatively recently. I think like F-stoppers had started, but I don't know if we had really made any money yet. It was just kind of like this thing that we were doing because we wanted to build something bigger than us. And we had never planned to make money with F-stoppers. It was always just kind of this pet project that we had. And I remember I'm trying to think of how much money I had in the bank, but like it was a decent amount of money that I had saved up. And obviously, like the wedding industry is up, down, up, down. But I went through like the biggest dry period of my entire life, I guess. And it was something like 6 months where I didn't make a single dollar. In 6 months, like half a year, I made not $1. And I kept watching my bank account drop, 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 drop. And at this point, like all these people were starting to follow me on F stoppers and everything you're doing so great, so great, so great. And I just remember thinking like, oh my gosh, like I'm a fraud. I can't believe this is happening to my business. Why aren't people booking me anymore? What's happened? And by the time like it started getting to the 6 month period, like I had very little money left. I just had like a few $1,000 left. And I was so close to going out and like becoming a server at a restaurant to cover my ass until the next job came in. And I remember I got really depressed during that time, and I just kept thinking like, how could this happen to me? How could this happen to me? And then it was like the next week I made like more money that week than I had ever made in my whole life. It was like I booked 3 or 4 weddings, and then I shot 2 weddings. There's something happened, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I just made $25,000 in a week or something. And it was like I had never needed that money more in my entire life. And I just remember very vividly how awful that felt in that moment, and how the only person I could blame was myself. You know, I had really slacked off with the advertising. I had just assumed that people would come to me. I became a little bit more easygoing with my money, with my outgo. And, you know, I never thought 6 months would go by without getting paid. That has never happened before. Why should it happen now? And so it's just made me a lot more careful with how I spend my money and how I look at my business overall. And just because I've got some videos on the internet does not mean that I'm incapable of losing it all at any moment, you know? So right. I think that has made me a lot more careful than I was. I don't know how long ago. That might have been like 4 years ago that happened.
I appreciate you sharing, because I think we all kind of go through those ups and downs where we get a little confidence, and that for whatever reason gets in the way of us pursuing the next step. And then we get in our own way that way, you know? So
yeah, exactly.
When you're working on your photography, what would you consider to be the most important practice in your business? Is there a piece in the workflow with every job you definitely do that one thing?
So if you're talking about wedding photography, then I probably have one answer. I also have a very unique outlook on photography in general now, because I've been able to meet so many very successful photographers, and I've gotten to know them very closely. So a lot of the photographers that people might think are doing really, really well, I know they're not. Or a lot of the photographers that are super, super humble that nobody's ever heard of, I really know what's going on and how well they're doing, and the way that they've entered the market and the way that they're making more money than other people. So for me in my wedding business, I would say like one thing that was always really important to me was, you know, treating the client well, like being happy and accommodating the day of the wedding, trying to figure out like exactly what they want and giving them what they want without forcing them to do things that they don't want to do. But all of this is very particular just for wedding photographers. The stuff that, like, if you're a commercial photographer, you're doing like anything other than weddings, I would say the number one thing that I've seen that all of these photographers are doing that are wildly successful, it's attention to detail, and it's production value, and it's like, okay, we're going to take this really simple idea that absolutely anybody is capable of doing, but how can we take it to the next level that it's just like so insane that the average person couldn't do it anymore? Or what are we going to do in post-production that gives our image this look that makes people think of my name, or that makes people go, whoa, how the hell did they do that? And that's something that I have always failed to do outside of wedding photography, is really push my work to the next level. I have like my commercial photography website literally has not been updated in 8 years. It's all pictures from like when I was in college and stuff. I just haven't really cared about that website, but it's full of very mediocre pictures, right? And I think you could go to the website and say like, oh, that photographer's pretty good, but you'd never go to my commercial website and say that photographer's world class. And all the photographers that I've seen that are making the world-class dollars, they make it for a reason. When you see their work, you think of them. And when you see their work, you go, man, like, how did you do that? Or, whoa, how much did the production on that cost? And I always just tried to go about things cheaply, you know. Instead of getting the legit model, I would get my friend to model. Instead of getting the stylist that was really needed or the makeup, I would just get them to use their own clothes or whatever. Or instead of building the set, I would just use the wall in my house. And it shows in your pictures, and it takes a long time before you can even see the difference in that. You know, it's like, even now, I've been a professional photographer for like 10 years, and I feel like I'm just now starting to understand what separated my work back then from all of these guys that I look up to so much now. So I would just say, like, always trying to raise the bar. Like, what can you do to put your work above everyone else? And the money will come after that.
I really appreciate the transparency and the well-rounded understanding just from all the different people you've met and the experiences you've had in working with them through F-Stoppers. It's really refreshing to hear how real you are, because I think there's a good view of people who are running these big websites like you and Patrick running F-Stoppers, and we have this little bit clouded view of just, you know, oh, they're these super successful photographers, they're charging all this money for their wedding photography, they'll, you know, they don't even have to get paid to travel now. I mean, that's how successful they are. And it's like, hearing it from you directly, it's not about that. It was never really about that. It was about creating a good product to the best of your ability, doing the best you could with your clients, specifically your wedding stuff, you know, just doing what you love in the best way you can. And it wasn't always financially driven. And if it's turned into that over time, that's great. But
yeah. I mean, I think I don't want you to paint me as some saint that, like, oh, he never cares about the money, he never would. Like,
no.
I feel like I built my wedding photography business in a way that could streamline the process of shooting weddings, and it got so simple that I could literally shoot a wedding in one day, edit the wedding the next day, and deliver it the very next day.
Right.
Like, I shot for 9 years. I shot JPEG. The only reason I've moved to RAW is because we hired someone in the office that would edit my pictures for me. I never wanted to get into Lightroom. I never wanted to get into that sort of thing. Every picture on my website was all shot in JPEG. So, like, I created this super streamlined process of, like, I can do a really good job. It may not be as good as the people charging $20,000, but I can do a really good job, and I can make $8,000 or $10,000 sometimes. And my clients are very happy, but I don't have to edit the wedding for 2 weeks. And I'm not going to push albums, because albums take months to get right, and the clients are never happy, and it's always a pain in the ass, and it's never worth the money. So, like, I have to offer the albums because I don't look legitimate if I don't, but I'm going to try to convince people. I'm not going to try to convince people not to get the album, but I'm not going to convince them to get the album.
Right.
I'm not going to push it like a lot of other photographers. I'm not going to push for people to get the prints, because at the end of the day, money, yes, I can make more money from those things, but it's going to take 10 times longer to make money from those things. So I would rather create something like F-Stoppers in my free time and make a little bit less money, or go on the boat and go wakeboarding and have fun and make a little bit less money, than work, 7 days a week every single day and try to make a few extra $1,000. It wasn't worth it to me.
Right. Well, we have a wide range of photographers listening. And Lee, could you share with Photo World one thing that you believe would lead to growth and success in a photography business, regardless of their current level?
This is the way that we laid things out for our wedding photography tutorial. And I think it applies to all genres of photography. The very first thing is you have to have a portfolio, right? And everybody has mediocre pictures in their like, everybody has taken bad pictures. Everybody's taken okay pictures. Everybody's taken great pictures. There should be no reason for anything but great pictures to be on your website, right? And you need to figure out what that might be. And in the wedding tutorial that we did, we talk a lot about the stuff that we see as photographers is not the same thing that the client sees as a bride. And so I might love a picture because it was really complicated and the lighting was so complex and blah, 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 blah. But when the bride sees it, she goes, ew, her arms look fat. And so when that happens, you have to be honest with yourself and say, even though I love that picture has to come off my website, because it is taking people out of this emotional reaction when they see your pictures and going, oh my gosh, I want to have this for myself. And they go, ew, look at that dress. Who would buy a dress like that, right? And it's the same thing in all genres of photography. So the first step is always get rid of all the fluff in your portfolio, but you need to have enough in your portfolio to where it looks complete. So somebody who I think's done a great job of this is Mike Kelly. He's an architectural photographer. I was actually just talking to him on the phone right before I talked to you. And Mike Kelly has incredible before and after pictures for his work. His business is absolutely booming right now. And so after you have the portfolio, you have to put the portfolio on the website. You have to build a nice website, right? You're going to want to have nice things like your logo needs to look professional. It needs to be easy to navigate. People need to be able, it just needs to look professional all the way around. Doesn't mean you have to spend a lot of money. You'd be surprised how many people don't get these first two steps, though. It's like they try to build the website before they have the pictures, or they have the pictures and then they build the crappy website. So great pictures, great website, and then you got to get it in front of people. There's a few different ways to do that. Obviously, you can pay for advertising if you want to. Most photographers find like word of mouth to work the best. Like Mike Kelly in particular, he's the king of this. He goes through it in the tutorial that we did with him about how he started from scratch in 2 different cities. And he went door to door to realtors, and he had really well-made pamphlets, like book-type pamphlets that were so pretty that there's no way anyone would throw them away. It's so much better than a business card, right? And he said, I could have mailed them, but like I wanted to see somebody in their face and I want to talk to them, right? So every day he moved there and he would just walk into realty stores over and over and over and over. And he would shake these people's hand and just say, hey, if you ever need anything, let me know. And they would keep this book. He's still getting calls from these people years later because they're like, oh, we didn't need you back then, but we lost our photographer and now we want you. And his answer now is, I don't shoot real estate anymore. He only shoots commercial property now because he's reached that level. But I think it just shows that like there's so much to be said for hustling, and there's so much to be said for like making an impression on somebody. F-stoppers in particular, like I haven't really been a boss until I've worked here. I always say if you're good enough, I will hire you even if I'm not looking to hire someone. Because if you can make me money, then I will pay you whatever you want, right? If you can make me more money than what it costs. So if I meet somebody and they impress me personally, I like them as a person, and then I see their work, whatever that may be, and it's like, whoa, you really know what you're doing, you're going to get the job. But I think photographers, they might try to go out and meet people before their portfolio is ready, before they're really good enough. Or they might try to go out and meet people before their website looks professional. Or they build the website and then go, why isn't anybody coming to my website? And so you have to kind of have all 3 of those things in place before anybody's ever going to hire you, because you don't look legitimate if you don't have it.
That should be the business triangle alongside the exposure triangle, you know?
Exactly. It's super simple. It's not any secret, you know?
Have you had an aha moment during your career where a light bulb went off, something just hit you? Yes, this is what I need to do next.
I have so many crazy ideas all the time. And what's awesome about my relationship with Patrick, for anybody listening, he's the other half of F-stoppers, is that we're really good at bouncing ideas off of each other. And so he just walked in my office yesterday and was like, I have a really stupid idea I think we should do. And I was like, okay, I can't wait to hear your stupid idea. And it was a stupid idea, but it was kind of a good stupid idea. We tested it out today in the studio. It was a failure. We're not going to do it. But I think so many people don't ever try stuff, you know? It's like everybody's full of good ideas. I have a good idea. Let's start a colony on Mars. Well, that's not a really realistic idea for me at this point in my life. Like, I don't know anything about that. I don't have the money to pay for that. So like, it's easy. Like, let's get rid of cable internet. Let's do it all wireless. Yes, that's a really good idea. But how am I going to do that? It's not really feasible at this point in my life. So let's bring the ideas into reality, and then let's just do the idea, right? Patrick and I had no experience building websites, and we taught ourselves how to do WordPress, and we built F-stoppers, and it was this ugly website at the beginning. We had no idea how to do video, but we were like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did video and taught photography? So we just went out and did it. And we've done so many things, like what we just tested today that was a failure, and boom, we just move on. Like, I won't ever even think of it again. We wasted 20 minutes and we're moving on. So just take your idea, implement it. If it doesn't work, then move on to the next idea. But I'm sick of these people that keep coming up to me and telling me about their idea and trying to get me involved with it, and they will never take the first step on their own.
I hear that. I mean, there's something I say often on the show, and that's do the work. There's a book with that same title,
There you
and
go.
it's so simple. So many people won't take the second to do the work, or at least start seeing it through to get a
Yep.
better idea of if this is going to fly or not. And if not, then don't be hung up on it. And another thing that kind of you were saying that got me thinking was we're always looking for the next solution, and people aren't trying their own stuff. So they're out there looking at all these different websites, watching all these different videos on YouTube, and they're just looking to mimic that. There's no shame in doing that. That's a great thing to do, to practice, to try something new, to add more to your repertoire. But take that and jump from that point and make something happen from it, make something new out of that. So I think that's some good inspiration, photo world, right there. Lee Morris right here with you, giving all these great ideas. So get out there and do the work.
Here, this is something that Patrick goes wakeboarding with me. He's particularly bad at it, and I tell him this, and everybody who's learning wakeboarding or business or whatever thing you might be doing, like if you're trying to land a new trick in wakeboarding, let's just say, like, there's different levels of skill and everything, right? But like, let's just say that you have to fall 500 times before you'll land it the first time, right? Wouldn't it be better to just go ahead and fall 500 times as quickly as possible rather than falling like once every 10 attempts, And it's the exact same thing with business. I have done so many freaking things. And let's just say like 1 out of 10 things I do is successful and 9 fail. Wouldn't it be better for me to try 10 new things a week and get one awesome successful thing per week? I don't do that. I can't say that I do try 10 new things a week. But wouldn't it be better to just try as fast as you can all the different things? Now, and also I need to be clear that you have to follow through. You, like, a lot of people give up well before they should.
Right.
But just try it, because you have to fail. There's no way that you could be right 10 of 10 times, right? Everything we do with f-stoppers is kind of trial and error. So just go ahead and get it out of the way. If you want to be a photographer, I'm not saying quit your job tomorrow and go be a photographer, but I'm saying buy the camera and start shooting on your off days, or shoot on the weekends, or whatever. Like, get to the point where you're making a little bit of money. Then you'll know when you will easily know when it's time to quit your job, because there'll be too many photography jobs and they'll be interfering with your other job. But until that point, like, you can't give me the sob story that your dream is to be a photographer, but like you don't have any portfolio whatsoever.
Lee, for Photo World out there, we're always looking for these high points in these stories. And me personally, I feel it's very difficult to take one and narrow it down to that. But as a high point, it doesn't have to be the official height of your career. Has there been an I made it moment where you kind of were able to look back and go, you know what, I'm really glad I got to this point, and then what's next after this is yet to come?
Yeah, there was a point. And this is going to sound really stupid, but I'll be honest. I was shooting my first overseas wedding 6-7 years ago, and a client had paid me to fly to Germany, and I like lived with her family, or like her husband's family. He was German, she was American, and Patrick came with me. He was my photography assistant at the time, and that trip was actually when we came up with the concept for f-stoppers. But that's beside the point. The night of that wedding, I was shooting the wedding with Patrick. Like, we were having so much fun. Like, we had been there for a week already. We had gotten to know the entire wedding party. We knew all the family members. It was just like this super tight group of people. And so I felt like I was kind of family and friend at that point. And they didn't have water anywhere in Germany. They just had carbonated water, which I couldn't get used to. Like, now it's all I drink. I love it. But back then it drove me crazy. And beer. So it's just carbonated water and beer. Like, those are the only options at this wedding. And the bride and groom were like, oh, you got to drink with us. You got to drink with us. So Patrick and I just get wasted at this wedding. Like, we are so drunk, and we are passing cameras around, and like everybody's got our cameras and they're taking pictures of everybody else. So there's like a lot of pictures of me dancing, and there's pictures of Patrick and everybody having a ball. And I remember telling Patrick, like, this is the coolest experience of my whole life. Like, how in the world did I end up here? How in the world am I getting paid for this? My clients have never been happier. I've never been happier. The pictures are turning out awesome. And it was just kind of this pinnacle moment in my wedding career where I thought, like, man, it has all led to this, and life doesn't get any better than
And Germany's just loving it right now because I got listeners over there. So
that.
they're excited to hear their beer and carbonated water stories of all they have for beverages.
Yeah.
Deutsche ausgezeichnet, yeah. Sorry, I
Yeah.
took 2 years in high school of German, so I had to throw a little in there, I guess. Act like I know what's up.
Here's another quick little story about that. So the groom was German, and the his sister. I was talking to his sister one night, and she and all the other German people were trying to understand why they had wasted so much money flying a photographer from the United States to take these pictures, right? And in Germany, from what I've been told, wedding photography is not the same in the States, right?
Right.
It's much more like I'm just going to show up and take a couple family pictures and I'm going to leave, and like all the other candid shots you guys handle on your own. But they really wanted the American style candid photojournalistic pictures. And so I'm trying to explain to her that, like, well, weddings in America are kind of ridiculous, and like we do things to the level 10 and blah blah blah. And so the wedding pictures, like, I can take pictures that are better than you can with the little camera, but they actually, like, they have a more emotion, and like and I was having such a hard time explaining it to her, right? Like, why am I worth paying for? And especially, why am I worth flying halfway around the world? And she wasn't being mean or anything, but it just sounded so absurd to her. And the more we talked, I'm like, yeah, it is kind of absurd. Like, everybody's a photographer. You could have found a photography. So during the reception, there are all of these crazy things that German people do at weddings. Like the groom's grandmother gave the bride a cow before the wedding. Directly following the ceremony, the bride and groom had to cut down a tree with a rusty saw, right? All the, yeah, weird stuff, which was awesome for me because I was loving it. But we get to the reception, and the bride is throwing the bouquet, right? The German people have no idea what this is. I don't even know what it is. Like, it makes no sense, but it's what we do as Americans. And she throws the bouquet, and the sister catches it, right? And everyone crowds around her. All the Americans crowd around her, and they're like, yeah. And I reach in with my camera and I put it over her head, and she looks up at me, and I take this picture, and she's like holding the flowers, looking up at me with this huge smile on her face. And I show her the picture, and she says, now I understand. Now I get, like, nobody would have gotten that picture. I understand now why a professional photographer is needed for 10 hours on a wedding day or whatever. So I thought that was kind of cool. Like, I couldn't really explain it to her, but I kind of was able to show her, I guess.
Well, and that's more your field. Being able to just see it is a little bit easier than saying it. So,
Yeah, yeah.
Lee, during your photography career so far and your career with F-stoppers, what is the best advice you've ever received?
In terms of advice, like, I don't know if there's like a single quote that I've gotten, but I think it has a lot to do with money. And I've heard this from a lot of people. I'm a huge Dave Ramsey fan, like no debt type person. It's all about, like, choosing what you want out of life and then spending your money for that. So most people claim, I want to travel. Like, that is my goal in life. If I won the lottery tomorrow, I'd quit my job and I would travel. But then they set themselves up with these jobs that, don't give them any time off. And then they lease the fancy new car so they can't afford the vacation, and they buy the fancy house with the fancy furniture, and they buy all this stuff. And then you ask them, like, is this what you would have done if you had won the lottery? Or if you were going to die in 6 months, is this what you would have purchased? And the answer always is no. Well, no, I would quit my job and I'd go travel. Well, if that's what you want, then you need to set yourself up to do that. And if you're going to work for yourself, you obviously need a lot of cash reserves. Like, obviously in the story I told earlier, 6 months without a single dollar, and I almost ran out of money. So most Americans do not have 6 months of expenses. But at this point in my life, like, I would rather have a couple years worth of expenses at least. Just, like, especially now that I own F-stoppers and I have employees to take care of and stuff, like, we probably have like 5 or 10 years worth of expenses just, like, waiting in case something bad happens. And then decide what you want to do with your money from there. If you, like, obviously you can have an okay car and still go on vacation, but maybe you can't have the BMW. Or if you want to be the photographer, you can't do the job that takes 70 hours a week. There's, like, that conflicts with your dream to do that. And I remember when I was in Dubai. I went to Gulf Photo Plus, and we were interviewing David Hobby from Strobist,
Mm-hmm.
and he told me something. It made me feel awful, really. He said I can't remember how he put it, but it had something to do with age. He was like, everyone will use their age as an excuse for their lack of success or their lack of motivation. Like, the reason that I don't own a website like Fstoppers is because I'm only 25 years old. And when I'm 35 years old, like, that's when people really start making money. Or, the reason that I didn't book the commercial job is because I'm so young and they got the person that looks like they have more experience or does have more experience or whatever. And he said the scary thing is you will keep doing that until one day you will wake up and you'll be 55 years old and you will notice that the only people getting hired anymore are 25 years old. And you will realize that your entire life you have believed that older people have been the one that have been collecting all the jobs and the money and been living the life and everything. And then when you finally reach that turning point, you will realize that you had the ability and the opportunity the entire time to do whatever you wanted, but you chose not to. And now it actually is too late. And when he said that, like, oh my gosh, like, it's giving me goosebumps right now just thinking about it, because I think about myself like that all the time. I look at people like David Hobby or Scott Kelby or whatever, and I go like, man, maybe when I get to their age, I'll be at their level. But I shouldn't be thinking like that, because I could be leaving so much on the table right now,
Right,
by not actually attempting to do something about it.
yeah. I mean, Photo World, you want some inspiration? Go look at the career of Joey L. and what he's been doing and his age.
Exactly.
I mean, that'll blow your mind a little bit. So hopefully we'll get him on the show in the future here.
I talked Joey. I asked him. I said, "Do you believe that people were hiring you because of your age? Like, you were kind of like a freak show at the time, and so it was like in a good way,
Right.
like, oh my gosh, look at this prodigy. Like, we got to get this prodigy." And I don't know if he would know the answer, but he was very adamant about, like, no, I don't believe that at all. Like, I think I just had the best portfolio and I was able to give the best bid on the job and I got the job. Like, he just puts himself at the level with all the other photographers that are 45 years old and been doing it forever.
Right.
And it's all about business and professionalism to him.
But like you said earlier, he built the portfolio and he built the website and he put it in front of the clients, So,
there you go.
I mean, he did those things. And the next question is, if you had to start a photography business all over, what would you do first? But I think I already know the answer, and because you've covered it already.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, I kind of want to restart my whole photography business.
Mm.
I don't know what I'm going to do with the weddings. I may just kind of leave. Like, I haven't updated my wedding website in 5 years, maybe. I've just kind of, it's still Flash. Like, you can't even look at it on your iPhone or iPad. It's awful business. Basically, I'm just booking people through like friends and through wedding planners who know. Yeah, I stopped all advertising a couple years ago for that. But I have thought, like, it's kind of crap that I own a website like Fstoppers and my commercial website is as bad as it is. And I've considered deleting every single one of my pictures, starting from scratch, and then, like, over the course of a few months saying, like, once a week, I'm going to plan something that'll blow your mind and I'm just going to take it to the next level, if for no other reason than my own personal satisfaction. Like, maybe I'll never actually book photography jobs, but I just should do it for my own self-betterment. But every time I talk about doing that, it's like something else comes up and I'm like, I should really focus on that instead. So I haven't got there yet.
There's a few good nuggets here. I mean, just the idea of doing something once a week and, building a new portfolio, just do it for yourself. Really, Photo World, that's all it is. Get a system in place and stick to it, And Lee, you said something else comes up, and it's not that it's come up and it's in the way. It's that's a little bit more important right now, and that's okay because that's what you're pursuing, whether it's for Fstoppers or whatever the case may be. So, priorities are a huge factor in what we're doing as photographers. Getting systems in place to making it happen are the other big one. So, take that with you guys.
Something that I would suggest too, that was a huge help to me when I was in college, that I think like really pushed me ahead of everyone else who was taking photography classes with me while I was in school. I started shooting stock photography and selling it online. And I was shooting micro stock for like Shutterstock or iStock Photo, Dreams Time. And, I wasn't making much. It was like 25 cents, 50 cents a sale or whatever. But that was the most helpful thing that I've ever done to really put my ego in check, because I would think that I was taking an awesome picture, and then it just wouldn't sell. And then I would take what I thought was a mediocre picture, and it would sell like crazy. And so, instead of me doing the talking and me feeling like my work is so incredible, whatever I might believe, I would shut my mouth and let the market decide what my photography, what level my photography was at. And I got to the point while I was still in school where I was making 500 or $1,000 a month, which doesn't sound like much to people who have a career, but when I was in college, that was incredible for me. I was able to start buying the photo gear that I needed to start my business later. So I always tell people that if you have some free time, shoot stock, man. I remember when I first met Patrick at the camera store, I got him into photography, and every weekend we would come up with some photo shoot that we were going to do just to sell stock photography, and we would make it happen, whatever that was, and sometimes we'd make no money, sometimes it's a total failure. Patrick just found some old pictures of me. We went to a library, and I don't even know what I was doing. I was dressed in a suit, and I'm like reading books in a library, and the pictures are terrible, right? But that's what I needed to do to get better at photography. I had to shoot, and we were shooting all the time.
Right. Do you have an app or an internet resource that you think Photo World could benefit from knowing about?
App? Ooh, yeah, I don't think so. I mean, an internet resource, all I could say is like F-Stoppers. We try to have a lot of free content on there.
Oh, it's a great resource. Yeah, I second that one. So,
but yeah, other than that, like all the apps I have are just a total waste of time for me. I just today I deleted the Reddit app off my phone because I've been spending so much time reading pictures with text on them. It's ridiculous.
You can get stuck, and then it brings you another direction, and you start looping around. You're like, what have I been doing for 2 hours? So
exactly. You could have taken pictures.
Absolutely. What is one piece of gear that you could not live without? Aside from a camera body, what's one piece of gear you could not live without?
Aside from camera gear in total, I would say dual monitors.
Okay.
You right now are on dual monitors. I'm looking at you on one screen. I've got Adobe Premiere open on the second screen.
Same here. I love it.
Oh my gosh. When photographers, I know most photographers use Macs. I do not. We're all on Windows here. Oh, so are you?
Yeah, Windows all the way here.
All right. I know that the new iMac has a beautiful 4 or 5K screen. Like, it looks gorgeous. And the design of the Mac computers are beautiful. I love them. But the idea that you can get everything done on a single monitor absolutely drives me crazy. So yeah, basically, like, I wish I liked the Mac OS operating system. It just drives me crazy because I love the hardware of the computers. But the idea that you can just make a screen bigger and bigger and bigger and then not need dual monitors makes no sense to me, because I like being able to go full screen on both monitors and drag stuff to and from each monitor, and I don't like grabbing the corners and making things smaller and then rearranging them. It drives me crazy.
I don't know about you, but I'm getting close to wanting 3. So,
man, I think about it every day. I always think to myself, like, man, if I could just have 8 monitors, then my life would be so much easier.
I'm weird. I have Windows machines in my office, mainly because I love to build my own computer. I liked having, it's so much cheaper to have that kind of power. I got Android phone, Windows tablet that I got you Skyped on right now, and then on my iPad. I need a little of every market, I guess. So
I respect that. I gotta say, I absolutely love my iPhone and I love my iPads. I've got 3 freaking iPads now. It's a problem. But I like having more control over my computer and my software than Mac gives me. It tries to do things for me, and I hate it. I hate syncing. I just want to drag and drop,
Right. Lee, please share with Photo World one parting piece of guidance, the best way that we can reach you, whether it be F-Stoppers or some sort of social media, and then we'll say goodbye.
My best piece of advice, I think it comes back to money, and I'm trying slowly to write a book about business and money and the way people spend their money. But I would just say, every time you're about to buy something, think about, is this getting me closer to where I want to be in my life? Or if it's not, then it's definitely taking you farther away. Every time I buy a new car, it is taking me away from a vacation, or it is taking me away from being able to quit my job so that I can be a full-time photographer. or it's taking me away from buying that new camera that I want. And you get to decide which is most important to you and what you like more. But what I've found so interesting is that they're so contradicting with what they say they want and then what they then waste their money on. And so if you want to be a photographer, like I assume the majority of people listening to this podcast want, then set up your life so that the majority of your money is going towards that dream. And that may require you drive a crap car. It may require that you live in a crappy place with a roommate. It may require that you don't make as much money because you have to work part-time so that you can focus more on your photography business. But every time you're about to buy that cup of coffee or that new piece of furniture or the new drinks on the weekend or whatever, think to yourself, like, is this getting me to where I want to be? Because 99% of the time, even with me today, the answer would be no. It's like, no, it just feels good to buy this stuff and it makes me kind of happy. It kind of medicates the fact that I'm not really happy with my current situation or whatever. And once you can really realize that, then you can start using money to propel you in the direction that you want to go. And maybe for some of the people listening, it's not photography. Maybe it's something completely different. But chances are, all of us have certain things in our lives that we would like to change, or we'd like to have them a little bit better or whatever. And I feel like for the majority of people, money is a hindrance to them. The reason I can't go become a photographer is because my monthly fees are $7,000 a month or whatever. Like, if the second I quit my job, I would lose my house, or I wouldn't be able to afford my car lease, or whatever, all of these excuses. So my advice is get rid of the excuses, cut everything to the bone, start spending the money so that you either have extra money in the bank, you're not worried about taking risk anymore, or you have enough money to take these risks, and then really start working on a daily basis to get to that point. And then you asked where people can reach me.
Mm-hmm.
On Facebook, I think my Facebook is facebook.com/RLMorrisPhoto, PHOTO. I don't have Twitter. I probably should get that. I have no idea what I would say on that. I don't really even know how Twitter works, to be honest with you. And I guess like fstoppers.com. We have a new community on fstoppers now, which you can create an account, put your portfolio online and everything. I obviously have an account, so you can send me private messages on there. You can write on my wall. You can see my mediocre portfolio. You can rate my pictures in my portfolio. People love doing that to me. And that's probably the two easiest places to reach me.
That's fantastic. Lee, I cannot thank you enough for your time today, sharing such great value. Photo World thanks you, and happy shooting.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Photo World, for tuning in to another great episode here on Take and Talk Pics. I hope you got the amazing value that I did out of this episode in interviewing our featured photographer for today. If you'd like to learn more about this photographer and the other photographers that we have interviewed in the past, head to takeandtalkpics.com.